On April 21st, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance touched down in Delhi, thrust into a high-stakes struggle between Washington, New Delhi, and Beijing. India now faces a pivotal choice side with America's bid to isolate China or risk strategic and economic fallout. In the midst of President Trump's reciprocal tariff campaign, the U.S. imposed a 26% levy on Chinese goods while pausing tariffs on all other partners until July 8. Now, as America courts allies to turn away from Beijing, India rushes to clinch trade deals with the US, the EU, and beyond. Yet on the very day Vance arrived, China warned against appeasement, vowing countermeasures to any arrangement that undercuts its interests. Between halted student visas, Apple's pivot to Indian iPhone assembly, and simmering border tensions, India's leadership must balance economic opportunity against long-term strategic autonomy. This visit could, honestly, redefine Asia's economic map and India's place in it. When Vice President Vance met Prime Minister Modi, both sides hailed constructive progress on a bilateral trade deal, emphasizing cooperation on energy and defense ties, and teasing a Trump visit later this year. The U.S. pitch is clear: deepen trade with India, draw manufacturing away from China, and offer tariff relief in return. For American firms eyeing alternatives to China, India's vast workforce and improving infrastructure are, well, pretty alluring. Apple already makes 1 in 5 iPhones there. From Beijing's vantage, however, America's demands look like coercion. Xu Feihong, China's ambassador to India, called U.S. tariffs a grave threat and urged India to oppose all forms of unilateralism and protectionism, highlighting what he termed vast potential for cooperation between New Delhi and Beijing. Indeed, before Trump's trade war, the two Asian giants had patched up a 4-year border standoff, resumed pilgrimage routes to Tibet, and opened talks on Chinese investment in Indian manufacturing. Yet the lingering memory of Galwan Valley clashes keeps Indian military and intelligence circles wary of Beijing's ambitions. Social media in India buzzes with hashtags like #ChinaThreat and #Atmanirbhar Bharat, meaning self-reliant India, reflecting public concern over border incursions, Chinese influence in South Asia, and the security of Chinese-built infrastructure. Opposition parties, notably the Congress, probe whether Vance's visit signals excessive reliance on American goodwill at the expense of India's own strategic interests. Economically, the challenge is immense. India's $99 billion merchandise trade deficit with China in 2024 to 2025 underscores deep ties. The pharmaceutical sector, one of India's largest U.S. exporters, depends on China for 70% of its precursor chemicals. Smartphone assembly relies heavily on imported components, many from Chinese suppliers. Though Trump has exempted smartphones from tariffs for now, he's warned Apple that its Indian operations too could feel the squeeze unless more iPhones come back to the U.S. Rules of origin will prove decisive. A.J. Srivastava of the Global Trade Research Initiative notes that Washington's criteria for defining Indian content will determine how much value must be added locally to qualify for tariff relief. Absent generous thresholds, India simply cannot displace China's supply chains overnight. I don't see any real alternative to China emerging in at least a decade, he cautions, an echo of the African proverb, "When elephants fight, the grass suffers." In this case, India's burgeoning industries risk being trampled in the crossfire. Comparatively, America has pursued similar strategies before. Remember the pivot to Asia under President Obama, or the way the United States solidified its alliance with Japan and South Korea to counterbalance Beijing. Yet India is not a treaty ally. It really prizes strategic autonomy above formal blocks. As Shakespeare famously wrote in Julius Caesar, "Cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war." But India would rather avoid open conflict, economic or territorial, with either superpower. Within India's corridors of power, debate rages. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has frozen approval for new Chinese investments, most notably pausing BYD's planned $1 billion electric vehicle joint venture, while selectively green-lighting partnerships where Indian firms hold controlling stakes. Chinese companies like Vivo, Innovance and Zian secured joint ventures last year, transferring some technology locally. Now, to placate Washington, New Delhi appears to be reining in even these cautious steps. Meanwhile, Indian exporters grapple with domestic politics. Opening agriculture to United States imports could destabilize rural constituencies that form the backbone of Modi's support. Allowing deeper United States access to e-commerce may run afoul of India's own corporate champions. And any hint that Modi is bowing to American pressure risks inflaming nationalist sentiment just as state elections loom. On the other hand, delaying a deal carries costs. American firms are already redirecting supply chains to India, and a trade pact could lock in investment and jobs. With student visas still in limbo after the Biden administration canceled thousands of Indian students' admissions, the United States must also mend its image. Vance's stint touring the Taj Mahal and Akshardham Temple with his wife and children of Indian origin is a deliberate soft power play, an attempt to humanize America's stance and win hearts beyond the negotiating table. China, for its part, offers a more familiar if fraught partnership. It pledges to buy more Indian goods, resume direct flights once pandemic-era restrictions lift, and even repair bilateral cultural exchanges. But memories of sudden supply chain blockages and tech transfer shortfalls loom large. India's China skeptics argue that Western integration offers a more predictable, rules-based environment, albeit under heavy United States influence. Whether India can thread the needle remains to be seen. It must weigh the promise of tariff relief, new factories, and geopolitical backing against the risks of alienating a neighbor whose markets and materials are deeply embedded in its own economy. Any agreement must be calibrated to preserve India's strategic autonomy, protect nascent industries, and maintain flexibility in foreign policy. As Modi balances these competing pressures, the longer-term question emerges. Will India's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat align with America's narrow goal of isolating China, or will it chart a more independent path that leverages both relationships? In the words of George Santayana, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. India cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of overdependence it once saw under colonial trade patterns. Vice President Vance's visit crystallizes India's strategic dilemma: embrace a deepening United States partnership and risk economic pain, or maintain ties with China and forego the benefits of tariff relief and American investment. Neither choice is simple. Border security concerns, public sentiment, and the reality of intertwined supply chains mean New Delhi must negotiate with both superpowers carefully. What emerges will shape not only India's economic future, but the broader balance of power in Asia and perhaps the world. If you found this analysis insightful, hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think India can truly pivot away from China? Don't forget to subscribe to Omni for in-depth scripts on the latest geopolitical developments, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode.